Morning, Prudence. Christian. Is that Jace as well, too? I think I remember your brother having the same. Lucia, Angie. It's actually passing period right now, so you guys should all be at your lockers making lots of noise. We'll start right on time, so you guys can take a break until 9:40. Is that when I start? Period 3. Oh, 9:35. No, it starts right now. We're right on time. All right. Well, welcome, guys. We're going to make this as normal as possible. Did you guys get to see the email Miss Wilson sent out this morning? Just so you know, what started this whole thing, the kid from 8th grade doesn't have COVID, so he tested negative. But the current regulations say that we have to still separate ourselves for 14 days. So even though the kid tested negative, there's a possibility that he still might have it. So that's the world that we live in. I wish it wasn't, but it is. All right, so let's see. Where did we leave off? We left off on section 6.4. So I will share this with you and we'll get going. Okay. All right, so hopefully you can find your homework, and we'll just go over like we normally do in class. We'll just go over all of the homework. Any specific questions on any one of the homework assignments, or any one of the questions on the homework assignments? I'm getting a lot of head shaking. Amber, I can actually see your face. This is crazy. I've been seeing all you people with your mask on. It's like there were a couple kids in the hallways one time and they had their mask off, and I'm looking at this student. I'm like, who is that? And I didn't even recognize it. Now I can see everyone with their mask off. All right, it's almost like it's normal. All right, if there are no questions, I'm just going to call out the answers. We'll go from there. All right, so check your work. So it was on page 198, 1 through 16 all. All right, number 1 is 38 degrees. Number 2 is 90 degrees. Number 3 is 67 degrees. 67 degrees. 3 was a bit challenging. Number 4 is 54 degrees. Number 5 is 73 degrees. 73. That one was hard. That one was really hard. Number 6 was 25 degrees.
How do I do that?
Number 7 is 52 degrees. 52 degrees. Number 8 is 100 degrees. Number 9 is 28 degrees. Number 10 is also 28 degrees. Number 11 is 152 degrees. So is number 12, 152.
Fix it.
Number 13 is 88 degrees. Olivia, you're standing on your head. Look like. Number 14 is 128 degrees. Number 15 is 128 degrees. And number 16 is 80 degrees. And then we had 18 through 24 evens. 18 would be 49 and 41 degrees. 20 would be 10 and 80 degrees. And second to last, 22 would be 20 and 160 degrees. And the last one would be 45 degrees. 45 degrees. Okay, so that's your last homework assignment that you won't physically turn in. Did I say that right? That would be the last homework that you would have physically turned in. So all the rest of your homework from tonight onward, you're going to have to attach to the assignment in Teams. If you run into problems, you're going to be doing this for all your classes, so you'll have it figured out within a day or two. So just make sure it's a nice, clean, and legible picture, and then always, put how many you missed on the top. You don't have to do it for this assignment. For 6.4, I'm just going to give everyone credit for this one, but we will start with 6.5. 6.5. So here's what it looks like for the next couple weeks. Hey, look, we got Thanksgiving on the screen now. So we're going to do, we're going to do, I think my mouse is, or my keyboard mouse is all by itself sometimes. We're going to do 6.5. 6.5 is a tough assignment. There's a lot of new terms, new vocabulary, and new procedures we got to learn. So we're going to break it down into 2 days, today and tomorrow. We will take a quiz on basically everything up to 6.5. The cool thing is we're going to use almost everything we've learned up to now. Tomorrow we'll talk more about what will be on the quiz. If you guys could do me a favor and just go ahead and mute, unless you have a question. If you mute your audio, then if you want to ask a question, then you just hit the space bar, hold it down, and that unmutes it, and so you can talk. So it just helps out. So if everything goes well, then this is the schedule that we'll go on. And typically pre-algebra goes fine. I don't have to take some extra days. But if we need some extra days because people are really lost or technical difficulties, the internet goes out for everyone, that sort of thing, then we can certainly push some things back. So please try to stay on top of things. Remember, all your teachers can read your chat, so be nice to each other in the chat. And I look at all the chats that go on in all my classes just to make sure there's nothing bad going on. And then we should finish for chapter 6 by next week. All right, here is your homework tonight. Now, the one nice thing about this is, normally I would pause, let you write this down. Just remember, this is also on the assignment. So when you go into Teams and you look under assignment 6.58, it will post at 7 o'clock in the morning every day. What won't be posted is literally this class because we're doing the video right now. So as soon as this class is over, I got to teach another one. So I don't have time to upload this to Teams until basically student advisement between that and 4 o'clock. So I've set a time deadline for myself. By 4 p.m. every day, I will upload the class video to the assignment. So for those of you that aren't catching this class live right now, just remember that even though the assignment will post in the morning, you won't see the class video. So for some of you, maybe a few of you, you might want to try to look at it yourself. Others of you, you're going to want to wait for the video of the class. And then, like I said, that won't get posted before 4 p.m. So you have that evening or the next day to look at the video if you want to not do the class live. If you're doing the class live, then you'll be fine. The nice thing about live, too, is you get to ask questions. All right, here we go. Everyone, and I will pause and ramble on about something while you get this. You need a piece of paper, or maybe even 2 pieces of paper. We're going to be doing some drawing today, and I need you to draw this shape. We're going to draw it at least twice when we do this. And it's a complicated drawing as well, too. So we're doing something called parallel lines, and look at all those words for the objectives. They won't make any sense right now, but they certainly will by the end of class. Lots of objectives here. So I need you guys in front of you, a piece of paper, blank, to take notes on. Normally, remember, I hand you a piece of paper. And then, obviously, you need something to write with. So if you don't have that, I'm going to talk about, I don't know, dogs or something, or cats or something and give you a minute or so to make sure everyone has it. If you don't draw this, you won't get this. This is a participatory class right here. Piece of paper and a pencil, piece of paper and a pencil. The nice thing is that we can all have something to eat and drink, and no one will get angry at you, the teacher, if you spill something because you're spilling it in your own house. All right, here we go. So here's the start of the class. The start of the class is we're going to start with a line. We'll call this line R. Remember, this is one of the ways that we can label a line is by that lowercase italicized letter, all there by itself. And the reason we do it this way is so it's not too messy, and you'll see it's going to be a pretty messy drawing when we're done. We're going to draw another line below it. We'll call it line S. And if you notice, if I were to take a ruler and I were to measure the distance between R and S, just so you know, we never measure the distance between two things at an angle other than 90 degrees, which is why I put that little square right there. So if you measure the distance, we say measure perpendicularly between the two lines there. Let's just say it's 3 centimeters. And then we pick any other 2 points along the line and we measure them and we find out it's also 3 centimeters. Remember, lines are not curved, so it never gets closer. In fact, these two lines would always be 3 centimeters away. We have a name for when two lines are the same distance apart. Anyone know?
Parallel.
We call those parallel lines. Good job. Okay, so we're going to be talking today about parallel lines. And so we're not going to write down the definition, that comes later. But the definition of parallel lines, just so you know, are two lines that are always the same distance apart from each other. Okay, we have a symbol for parallel lines, and the symbol actually looks like parallel lines. Okay. All right, so now comes the more challenging part. The more challenging part comes right now. Here we go. So you got to be a smart monkey to get this. So here's the basic setup. I'm going to start off with line N and line O, and there's nothing special about the names of them. And those two lines are going to be parallel to each other.
Leather gloves.
Now, to further complicate,
Leather
please
gloves.
mute, please mute. To further complicate this, we are going to have a separate symbol for parallel lines other than what's listed there in yellow. So the part listed in yellow there is typically in your instructions. But if you're looking at a picture and they want to indicate that two lines are parallel, they use these two little triangles or two little diamond looking shapes. It's basically two isosceles triangles. So they're going to use these two triangles on the line itself to indicate that the two lines are parallel. So basically now you have two options to show that lines are parallel, either these triangles or the symbol for parallel line itself. So like I said, they're already trying to make this really complicated. And the reason why we have two different ways is because sometimes the picture itself gets really complicated and they don't want to have space, or they don't have space to write this part here in yellow, or vice versa. They just want instructions that state the two lines are parallel, and they don't want to put the two diamonds. So just be ready for either one. So we have line N is parallel to line O. I'm going to draw a third line, and the third line is going to go through both lines. Now, I'm not going to say what these angles are, but the angles could be at any angle, right? It could go straight up and down. It could go point to the left. It could point to the right. This black line right here just basically goes through both lines. Okay, when you have this particular construction, two parallel lines cut by a third, we give this black line here a name. Now, you've never heard this before, so here's your first definition that needs to go in your notes. So this line, we'll just call it P, is called a transversal. So the definition of a transversal, T-R-A-N-S-V-E-R-S-A-L, transversal, the definition of a transversal is a line that intersects two parallel lines. When you get to geometry, you're going to find out it's two or more parallel lines. But for this year in pre-algebra, we're going to stick to just two parallel lines. So when two parallel lines are cut by a third, that third line is called a transversal. The definition of a transversal is a line that intersects two parallel lines. Okay? Now, I didn't ask you to draw this, but I'm going to ask you to draw this next. All right, so unless you ask for time, I'm moving on. Here we go. All right, so notice this construction formulates or forms 8 different angles. We have 4 at the top. There's no rhyme or reason of why I named them 1, 2, 3, 4. I could have named them 11, 12, 13, 14. There's no reason why you have to start with the left being 1 and the one on the right being 2. I'm just labeling these angles. And then the 4 on the bottom we'll call 5, 6, 7, and 8. And notice this construction, 2 parallel lines cut by a third or intersected by a third, intersected by a transversal, forms 8 different angles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay? That's what we're going to talk about, and that's what all the homework for the next 2 days is about, is this picture right here. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to think about the angles that are between the 2 red parallel lines. So the angles that are between the 2 parallel lines, anyone know what those? That would be angles 3, 4, 5, and 6. Anyone knows the name that we're going to give to those angles? Okay, didn't think so. So we are going to label those interior angles, interior angles. So interior angles are the angles formed by two parallel lines cut by transversal, and those angles that are between the two parallel lines. Okay, well, that doesn't sound too challenging. So that means angle 3, 4, 5, and 6 are the interior angles. Now, what I want you to think about, though, is I can take this entire shape and I can turn it left, right, or rotate it left, right, clockwise, counterclockwise. The numbers won't change, the names won't change, but the orientation of those angles, like where they are at, changes. So I'm going to show you another picture, and your job is to identify the interior angles. Any questions on interior angles so far? Okay, so 3, 4, 5, and 6 are the interior angles. Now I'm going to turn or rotate this shape so it looks like this. I still have two parallel lines cut by a transversal. And I'm making it easy here because I'm making them color-coded, right? When you do your homework tonight, they won't be color-coded. All the lines will be black. So notice I've got two parallel lines. That's line P and O, or the red ones. I had a third line, line N, and it's transversal. It cuts the two parallel lines, and I still get 8 angles. Now notice how I labeled those 8 angles. There's no rhyme or reason. You can name them anything you want. But what doesn't change is where are the interior angles. So the interior angles are the angles that are between the two parallel lines. So let's see, the parallel line is P, the parallel line is O. Where is the inside or between? That would be angles 2, 4, 5, and 7. So angles 2, 4, 5, and 7, those 4 right there are the interior angles. And if we were to stop right here, everyone would be 100%. The issue is that there's a lot more names. So interior angles are easy. The rest of them are also easy by themselves, but all put together, there's going to be a lot of names and definitions. So if you're just sitting there and you're not writing down notes, you're not doing what I'm asking you to do. Make sure you write this stuff down. Okay, so are we good on interior angles? Tonight for homework, they're going to literally give you a shape. It's going to look like this, or it's going to be turned or twisted. And they're going to say, identify the interior angles. Pretty easy. All right, so 2, 4, 5, and 7. And it's not always 2, 4, 5, and 7, because they could label those 8 angles. They could start at the bottom. The bottom where 8 is could be angle 1. There's nothing special about the names angles 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They can be in any position, but generally they tend to go from top to bottom, left to right. Okay, ready for the next angle. So if we have interior angles, right, two parallel lines cut by transversal, right, we get those 8 angles, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, we have interior angles. Anybody want to take a guess what the next type are?
External?
Yep, exterior angles. So those would be the angles that are outside of the two parallel lines. Those will be called our exterior angles. So interior are between the two parallel lines. Exterior are outside of the two parallel lines. So in this case, angles 1, 2, 7, and 8 are your exterior angles. 1 and 2 and 7 and 8 are your exterior angles. So I'll give you a moment to write that down. You're going to have to at least draw this shape once, and then maybe in notes have what the name of each angle. Now, some of these angles are going to get more than one names. So for instance, angle 3 is an interior angle, but it's also going to get another name as well too. Angle 1 is an exterior angle. There's also another way of describing angle 1, and I don't mean acute or obtuse. Question on exterior angles. Okay, so all I'm going to do is take the shape, I'm going to rotate it, and ask you, where are the exterior angles? Where are the exterior? Let's see, the definition of exterior angles are the angles that are outside on the exterior of the two parallel lines. Well, the two parallel lines are, according to this diagram right here, P and O. So if I look at the exterior, well, the exterior of that parallel line would be there. So that would give me angles 1 and 3. And the exterior of the other parallel line would be there. That would give me angles 6 and 8. So 1, 3, 6, and 8 are the exterior angles. So we got exterior angles, we got interior angles so far. Most of you are probably thinking, I'm not sure when it's going to get hard, but so far it's not that challenging yet. Okay, questions on exterior angles? All right, moving on. The next two are the more challenging ones. So take a deep breath, right? It's not a big deal, but you got to listen really carefully, really careful when you listen to what I'm saying, and you got to identify these things, understand the definition. So same construction, two parallel lines and an O, cut by transversal P, we get those 8 angles. Here it comes. So this time I'm going to talk about something called corresponding angles, corresponding, corresponding angles. So here's the definition. You got to think, you got to listen carefully. So what I want you to do is I want you to think about being on the same side as the transversal. You can think of it as being left or right. So I want to stay on the same side as the transversal, and I want to talk about being in the same position. So I'm going to erase that for a second and watch my mouse. Let's look at angle 1. In relationship to angles 1, 2, 3, and 4, angle 1, I'm just looking at these 4 angles right here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Angle 1 is on the top left-hand side of angles 1, 2, 3, and 4. See these 4 angles? Angle 1 is on the top left. Angle 2 is on the top right. Angle 3 is on the bottom left. Angle 4 is on the bottom right. So if I go back to angle 1, just angle 1, it is on the upper left-hand side. If I go down to the other 4 angles, there's another angle that is also in the upper left-hand side, and that is 5. Angles 1 and angle 5 are what we call corresponding angles. They are on the same side as the transversal, the left side. They are in the same position, upper left. 1 is in the upper left, 5 is in the upper left. So angles 1 and angles 5 are on the upper left-hand side on the left side. So they are what are called corresponding angles. Okay? But there are more corresponding angles. Look at angle 4. Angle 4 is in the lower right. Angle 8 is in the lower right. So angles 4 and angle 8 are in corresponding positions. So once again, to be a corresponding angle, you must be on the same side, right or left, and in the same position. Okay? And then I need you to write down one more thing. So 1 and 5 are corresponding. 2 and 6 are corresponding, upper right, upper right. 3 and 5 or 3 and 7 are corresponding, lower left, lower left, and angles 4 and angles 8, lower right, lower right. Okay, so those are all the corresponding angles. Now, don't always think that 1 goes with 5, because if you label these differently, these numbers would change. What doesn't change is where the corresponding angles are. So same side, left or right, same position, upper right, lower right, that sort of thing. Okay. Now, in big, 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 bold letters, there's a so what about this. Great. We got exterior angles, we got interior angles, we get nothing. They're just names. We get something from corresponding angles. If we were to take a protractor and we were to measure angle 1 and we were to measure angle 5, or 2 and 6, or 3 and 7, or 4 and 8, we would find something out. What we would find out, the so what about this, make sure you write this down, is that corresponding angles are congruent. Why are they congruent? Well, the lines are parallel. Notice the angle formed. Let's just look at angle 1. The angle formed would not change if line O was parallel to line N. If I turned line O, well, then it wouldn't be parallel to line N. But if it's parallel to line N, O is parallel to N, then the angles formed would have to be exactly the same. Right? Hopefully that makes sense. Angle 1 and angle 5 are the same. Angle 3 and angle 7. We're not saying that 1 is the same as 3. I mean, clearly 1 is acute and 1 is obtuse. But we're saying that the corresponding angles are congruent. So 1 is congruent to 5, 2 is congruent to 6, 3 is congruent to 7, and 4 is congruent to 8. This is a big, big, big deal. It's also kind of hard to wrap your head around. Corresponding angles are congruent. How do you find corresponding angles? Same side, same position. 1 is congruent to 5, 3 is congruent to 7, 2 is congruent to 6, and 4 is congruent to 8. Questions? Okay, I'm going to turn the diagram again. We have two parallel lines, B and C, cut by transversal A. List the corresponding angles. So one way, well, is to simply circle something. So we'll start with 1. 1 is on the, well, left or right is hard to describe here. We'll say it's above the transversal and it's in the upper left position. Which one corresponds to that? That would be 5. So 1 and 5 are corresponding. 4 is in the lower right-hand side. Up here, what's in the lower right-hand side? 8. I should have made those different color. So 1 goes with 5, 4 goes with 8, 3 goes with 7, 2 goes with 6. Hopefully that made sense. Okay. Questions? So 1 goes with 5, 2 goes with 7 or 6. Sorry. 3 goes with 7, and 4 goes with 8. Cool. All right. Remember, it says list corresponding angles, but I do want you to remember that these are congruent. 1 is congruent to 5, 2 is congruent to 6, 3 is congruent. Congruent means same measurements. Their measurements are equal. 4 is congruent to 8. All right, that's corresponding. Generally speaking, corresponding angles is the more challenging. All right, so we can do things with this because we know that corresponding angles are congruent. Check this out. It says the measure of angle 1 is 50 degrees. 50 degrees. So let's see, where's angle 1? Angle 1 is right here. So if angle 1 is 50 degrees, that angle right there is 50 degrees. Well, angle 1 corresponds with angle 5. So if 1 is 50, then guess what 5 is? Somebody?
50.
You got it. So therefore, angle 5 is 50. Great, cool. But we have some more things that we can do. Well, think about this. Angle 1 and angle 4 from last class, angle 1 and angle 4 are vertical. We also have angle 1 and angle 2. They make a nice straight line. They're supplementary. So we can actually figure out all 8 of these angles from just one of them. So angle 8, right, which is vertical to 5. 5 is vertical to 8, right? It makes that X. Do you see the X? 5 is congruent to 8. So if 5 is 50, well, then 8 has to be 50. But wait a minute, 8 corresponds to 4, same side, same position. So if 8 is 50, well, then 4 has to be 50. We're going to get all these 8 angles from just one. Well, how do we get the rest of them? Well, think about it. Angle 1 and angle 2 are supplementary. They form this straight line. When 2 angles add up to 180, well, if you want to find out what the other one is, just subtract the given angle, 50, from 180. That means angle 2 is 130, right? All right. So next one. Oh, by the way, any questions back on corresponding angles? Corresponding angles. All right. The next one, it's the same construction, 2 parallel lines cut by transversal. We're going to stay on the interior of the sign. So we're going to talk about angles 3, 4, 5, and 6. So we're going to stay on the inside, but we're going to make something called alternate interior angles. Alternate interior angles. So here's what alternate means. We're looking at the inside, so we're looking at angles 3, 4, 5, and 6. We're going to stay on the inside, and we're going to alternate. If we start on the left side, we're going to alternate and go to the right side. If we start on the top, we're going to go to the bottom. So if I start with angle 3, the alternate interior angle to 3, I alternate side. Instead of being on the left, I go to the right. Instead of being on the top, I go to the bottom. So 3 and 6, angles 3 and 6 would be alternate interior angles. One's on the top, one's on the bottom. One's on the left, one's on the right. But you got to stay on the inside. The question is usually, do we have alternate exterior angles? We do. Our book does not talk about them. We'll talk about them in high school, though. And by the way, they would be the same thing. 2 is congruent, or 2 is alternate exterior to 7. 1 is alternate exterior to 8. Just so you know, for those curious. All right. Well, 3 and 6 are alternate interior. Well, then so is 4 and 5. 4 is on the top. 5 is on the bottom. 4 is on the right. 5 is on the left. Alternate interior angles. Oh, let me write that down, 4 and 5. Okay? If we were to take a protractor and we were to measure angle 3 and angle 6, we would find out that they are congruent. If we were to take a protractor and measure angle 4 and angle 5, we would find out that they are congruent. Therefore, the so what about alternate interior angles is that they are congruent as well. So we could say that angle 3 is congruent to angle 6, angle 4 is congruent to angle 5. And hopefully now you're going to see that, oh, it's starting to build up. There's a whole lot of information I'm putting out today. I talked about interior angles. I talked about exterior angles. We can say nothing about them other than they're interior and exterior. Then we talked about corresponding angles. Those are congruent, same side, same position. And now we're talking about alternate interior angles. They are also congruent. Okay, those are in alternating positions on the inside. So we've talked about 4 different types of angles. 4 different types of angles. Okay, alternate interior angles are congruent. So let's see how this works. It says it says that the measure of angle 3 is 150. If 3 is 150 and the alternate interior to 3 is 6, then 6 is also 150. Okay. If the angle 4, the measure of angle 4 is 30, alternate interior to angle 4 is angle 5. If 4 is 30, then the measure of angle 5 is also 30. That's how it works with alternate interior angles. Okay. Interior, exterior, corresponding alternate interior angles. So once again, all I'm going to do is move this thing around and ask you to identify the alternate interior angles. To identify the alternate interior angles, we find the 2 parallel lines. That's B and C. Remember tonight for homework, they won't be red. B and C. Alternate interior means I pick one, 2, 4, 5, or 7. I pick one. So if I pick angle 2, that's on the top of the transversal. So if I alternate, I need to go to the bottom. 2 is on the left, I need to go to the right. So 2 and 7 are alternate interior, and 4 and 5 are alternate interior. 5 is on the top, 4 is on the bottom. 5 is on the right, 4 is on the left. And you're like, wait a minute, 5 is on the left of 5, 6, 7, 8. That's great, but I'm not talking about on the right. I'm talking about on the right of the interior angles, because we're talking about alternate interior. If I talk about corresponding, then yeah, 5 is on the left side, right? On the upper left. 5 corresponds with 1, but the alternate interior to 5 is 4. If your head is swimming right now and like wow, he's saying way too many things too fast, remember, I'm going to upload this video. You can watch it again. You can pause it. You can hear this explanation again. And if you think I'm talking too slow, then, well, good for you. All right, so 2 and 7, 4 and 5 are alternate interior. And remember, these are congruent. 2 is congruent to 7. 4 is congruent to 5. Hey, we got one thing left. So now we're going to put it all together, right? So now we have these things. This is from multiple classes. From the last class, we have the vertical angles congruent, right? So remember I said I would rather these be called opposite angles, but we don't use that in math. So even though vertical means up and down, in this case, those are the angles formed with an X, and those are the ones that are opposite each other. So 5 and 7 are congruent. Why? Because they're vertical angles, and 8 and 6 are vertical angles. They are congruent. 5 is not the same as 8. We have the corresponding angles are congruent, right? We got that one from today. That's this construction right here. 1 is congruent to 5, upper left, upper left. 4 is congruent to 8, lower right, lower right. 2 is congruent to 6, upper right, upper right. And 3 is congruent to 7, lower left, lower left. Okay. Lastly, we have the alternate interior angles are congruent. Remember, alternate interior on the inside of the 2 parallel lines. 3 is congruent to 6, 4 is congruent to 5. Okay? All right, so all 3 of these, we get that the angles are congruent. We have one other talking point, and it's from the previous class as well, too. The previous class, we had this construction. Notice we have this line right here. This line is broken up into 2 angles. Therefore, that they form a line. We know there's 180 degrees on a line. Therefore, we know that the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 is 180 degrees. two angles that make a straight line, they sum up to 180 degrees. Okay, so putting it all together, here's all four statements. Vertical angles are congruent, alternate interior angles are congruent, corresponding angles are congruent, and the ones that aren't congruent is the last one. Adjacent angles that make a line or form a line equal 180. They're supplementary. Okay, we're going to use all four of these statements on the last problem. The last problem is as complicated as it gets. Okay, so you take a really deep breath, right? We're going to do all 8 angles when I only give you one of them. All 8 angles when I only give you one of them. All right, so let's see how this works. So let's see. The measure of angle 1 is 140 degrees, right? The measure of angle 1 is 140 degrees, so I could label that. Well, let's see. What corresponds to angle 1? That would be, oh, let's do these in order. Measure of angle 2. Some of these you can do in order, some of them you can't. So let's see. Can we figure out angle 2? Angle 2 is right next to this 140. Notice they form a nice straight line. So if this is 140 and 2 is supplementary to this one, 180 minus 140 is 40. So we get the measure of angle 2 is 40. Does that make sense? These two add up because they make a nice straight line right here. Measure of angle 3, look at this X right here. 3 is vertical to this angle. If this angle is 40, then 3 is 40, right? Oh, wait a minute. 4 is vertical to this angle. So if this angle is 140, angle 4 is 140. Okay? To get to the other side, we've got to use corresponding angles. So let's see. Angle 5 would be, let's see, it's in the upper left position. Which one of these is in the upper left? It's this one right here. So 5 corresponds to this one. So if this one's 140, then 5 is 140. Hopefully that's making sense. Okay, angle 6, once again, makes a straight line with this angle. So 140 is supplementary to angle 6. The measure of angle 6 would be 180 minus 140, which would be also 40. Or you could say that this angle, upper right, corresponds to this angle. Either one of those two methods would work to find that angle. Angle 7, you could either say corresponds to this angle right here, or it's vertical to this angle right here. Either one is fine, but that's 40, that's 40. This is 40, that's 40. Okay? Lastly, angle 8 would correspond to the lower right, would correspond to this one, so it must be 140, or it's vertical to this one, it's 140. And here's something that I never understood until I got to high school, is look at all of these angles. It will always be the same as long as it's two parallel lines cut by transversal. There's only two numbers here. One is acute and one is obtuse. As soon as you find out that the two of them, measurements of two of them, one obtuse and one acute, you've got all the answers there. You just need to simply identify which one's acute and which one's obtuse. But I do want you to remember that these three things are how we figure this out. Alternate interior angles, corresponding angles, and vertical angles. And lastly, sometimes you may have to use two angles that form a straight line or supplementary. Okay. Anyone truly confused right now? Good. All right, let's do one last one and we'll call it a day. So once again, I'm going to give you one angle, measure angle 5, and we need to somehow figure what the rest of them are. All right, so let's see. Angle 5 is 60 degrees. So this one is 60 degrees. We can do this anyway. I generally go for vertical angles first. So 6 is congruent, or is vertical, or 5, angle 5 is congruent to angle 8. So if this is 60, then 8 is 60. Notice I'm labeling this. So even though it's asked me to put the answer right here, I'm going to label it on my diagram just to help me out. All right, let's see. 8 and 7 are supplementary because they make a nice straight line here. So if this is 60, then angle 6 would be 180 minus 60. That would mean angle 6 is 20 degrees, 20 degrees, 20 degrees, 20 degrees. That's 120. What did I say, 20?
Yeah, I was about to say that's incorrect.
Oh,
It's 120.
before you got it. Thank you. Woo! That would have been a point I would have lost. All right, or you would have gained. Let's see. 6 and 7 are vertical to each other. So that means then 7, because vertical angles are congruent, that 7 must be 120. And remember, my claim was once you have two of these, two different ones, you've got them all. So I will just say this, as soon as you get this construction, the other one mirrors it exactly. Or you can go through the process. Let's see, 5, this one right here, upper left corresponds to 1. So if angle 5 is 60 degrees, angle 1 is 60 degrees. But I'm going to tell you, you're going to get the same numbers in the same positions. This is going to look, the one up here is going to look exactly like the one on the bottom, right? Angle 6 corresponds with angle 2. It's in the upper right. This one's in the upper right. So that means 2 is 120. If you didn't want to solve it that way, well, then you can do it the other way, which is 2 angles that form a line. Angles 1 and angle 2 make a nice straight line here. Therefore, they are supplementary to each other. Let's see. Angle 8, lower right, corresponds with angle 4. Or you could say that 1 is vertical to 4. Either one is fine. In other words, it's also 60. Notice I'm getting exactly the same values in the same positions as well. Okay. Angle 3 corresponds with angle 7. Therefore, it must be 120 degrees. I'm going to leave off a couple labels there because the answers here are on the right. Notice I get exactly the same angles, top and bottom. Okay?
I have a question, Mr. Chartier.
Sure.
Would you consider 1 and 8 vertical?
We don't. Those are actually alternate exterior angles, and turns out those are congruent as well, too. We don't talk about alternate exterior angles until high school, but, well, I just violated that rule and just talked about it. Yeah, they're alternate exterior. One's on the left, one's on the right. One's on the top, one's on the bottom, and they are congruent. Notice 2 ends up being congruent to angle 7 as well, too. Make sense?
Yes, that makes sense.
Cool. All right, anyone else? Questions? That actually, oh, I gotta get my mouse going here. That actually is the rest of the class right there. Nothing else left to do. Any other questions? There's your homework for tonight. If you need any help, just send me a chat. Hey, I've been getting like 40 chats while I've been teaching this class. So just remember, if you send me a chat during the day, I very well may be teaching. So I can't answer all the chats during class. But I will certainly answer any of the chats that you have. Okay? Jade,
Actually, I do got a question.
Go ahead.
Okay, so do you want, if we're done, like, do you want us to turn in the homework today if we're done, or wait till
Didn't you
tomorrow?
already turn in your homework?
That was from yesterday.
That was from yesterday. Okay. Yeah. When and this was the first one that must be turned in on Teams. So this is the one that you got to attach it to the homework on Teams.
Yeah. So like, just like school, could we turn it in today? Or
Yeah,
do you want
I don't care. See, I don't let you turn in early at school because then I got a pile of yesterday's homework and today's homework, and it gets mixed up. But on Teams, it's going to keep it nice and orderly for me, so I can't make any mistakes on Teams. So yeah, you can turn your homework in right now if you want to.
Thank you.
Cool.
Mr. Chartier,
Yes.
this is recorded, right?
I'm going to hit the end recording right now, and then I'm not going to post it immediately. I'll say it's probably going to be sometime between 3 and 4 when I post it. But yes, It will be recorded.
Thank you.
Cool. Anybody else? All right. I will catch you guys tomorrow. See you all tomorrow. Have a good day.
You too.